And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bashing us, yeah.
We're live.
Hey, good morning. 8:05 Eastern Time. For me, it's bright and early, 5:05 in the West Coast. Sunshine. How's everybody doing? Listen, John, we were just cracking up. We already got some comments here, some listeners, friends of the podcast. Jesse James, thank you so much. Good morning, fellas. My new favorite podcast. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time and putting out truth and excellent content. And Franco, good morning. Hey, listen, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for listening and being a friend to the podcast, taking your time out to listen with us, especially early morning. Hassan, good morning. You were late to roll call yesterday, but it's all good. Chris GEC, good morning, everybody. Listen, John and I were just cracking up. It's hysterical. Watching Eric Adams give his speech in response to I can't stop laughing because giving his speech in response to the West India Parade is priceless. I mean, if you close your eyes, you would think it's a Saturday Night Live skit. It's like, this can't be real. I mean, honestly, I got to give it to this administration. I'm sure Juju's here listening. You're part of the administration. In this administration, as far as public safety and everything else with the city, it's an epic fail. But if I ever decide to open up a used car salesman dealership, I want everyone in this administration working for me. These guys can sell you ice in the winter. I mean, Eric Adams' speech in response to West India Parade is amazing. John, what are your thoughts on that speech? It's outstanding.
Dude, everything that comes out of this administration is pure, utter comedy. Like, you know, he gets crazy about the incompetent thing. Oh, it's they're racist because I'm black. It's like, no, bro, it's because you're an idiot, dude. It's like, but like, he's a huge failure. He's destroying New York City. But at this point, there's really no viable candidate to take him down. So I'm saying right now, 4 more years, Eric Adams. I don't even care if he gets indicted and arrested and he's wearing an ankle bracelet. As far as content, it's pure comedy gold. I mean, you could just literally take every one of his speeches and make a cartoon based off of it, and it's all going viral. Like, you know, the memes make themselves, the jokes make themselves. The dude doesn't get called out by anybody. He doesn't even realize what he's saying. The arrogance is in the air, and it goes to it all his low integrity people that he has around him too. So I'm saying right now, 4 more years of Eric Adams. I don't care if he gets indicted. I don't care when he gets indicted, and he has an ankle bracelet on, or he's even from prison. Let him run in from jail. Give him the phone. He'll say how great the jail is, how all the prisoners love him. I mean, I listened to the press conference yesterday, and I was like, what the hell is this? But honestly, like, for me to say that I was shocked, that's every time I listen to the press conference. Every time I listen to the press conference, I'm like, this guy's out of his mind.
I can't believe it.
He's like, yeah, I'm great. Everything's great. Everything we do is great.
I couldn't believe it. I mean, when I watched, I had to watch it over and over. Like, this is hysterical. I mean, it's not funny for someone lost their life at the West India Parade. 5 people were shot. I think the number actually maybe is 6. But the way he put it out there, if anybody saw the video, I'm sure we're going to play it. But he's like, it was only one person. I can't even get through this. It was only one person that shot at them. Like, it was a huge success. So I was like, can you imagine work for a private 500 Fortune company and you lose $8 million in one day? Like, oh, it's great. The plan was in effect. We just lost $8 million one day, but everything's going beautiful. I mean, 5 people were shot, but it was only shot by one person. Oh, and a person died.
It was a mass shooter. No big deal. That can't happen anymore.
But everything was beautiful.
Hats off to the team. Hats off to the team.
This is a Saturday Night Live skit. I can't believe that's. I mean, if you close your eyes, you're like, is that real? Is that real?
100%. Yeah, 100%. So Matt O'Brien asked, what's the rub on Curtis Sliwa? So before we get into the New York City mayor and show you how the NYPD, along with the mayor, had downplayed a mass shooting at the West Indian Day Parade and the loss of life and 5 innocent people shot, let's talk about Curtis Sliwa a little bit. Yeah, I mean, so I think I like Curtis Sliwa. Obviously, he's an icon in New York City. He's been around forever. I mean, the guy's been, had hits put out on him. The mob tried to get him. He's been on the streets of New York ever since I could remember, even when I was a little kid, So I have a lot of respect for Curtis Sliwa. I don't always agree with him or align with him politically. And I just don't think he's a viable candidate for New York City mayor. I think the last election proved that. He works for 770 AM, which is supposedly conservative talk radio in New York City. They do have some conservatives on there. They have Roger Stone on there, master conservator, right? He helped get several presidents elected. So there are some. They did at one point have Rudy Giuliani on there, but they threw him off. And they do have Anthony Weiner on there. They consistently have a lot of Democrat left-wing people who have helped destroy New York City come on there, and they promote them. And his boss is John Catsimatidis. John Catsimatidis, radio host, restaurant owner, another icon in New York City. But at the same time, he's supposedly promoting for Curtis Sliwa. He's having parties for Eric Adams, fundraisers in the Hamptons for Eric Adams to get him reelected to mayor. So I don't think that Curtis Sliwa is a viable candidate. I don't think he has a shot. I think he was put up there solely to lose. I did an interview a while back with Bill Pepitone. He was also an NYPD cop. He was actually one of my gym instructors, too, in the police academy, but he was an NYPD police officer. You guys should go back and listen to that interview. He was running. He had the conservative ticket. He was running on the conservative ticket in New York City, and the Republicans wouldn't even look at him. The conservatives just didn't have the money to get him out there. But if you hear his plan for New York City, you're like, wait, why don't I know who this guy is, and why wasn't the Republicans running him, and why clear common sense picture. So it's just to me, I like Curtis Sliwa. I wouldn't vote for him for me. What are your thoughts, Eric?
I'm curious. I mean, I hope some people don't get upset by saying this, but it's the reality. Do you think that age is also a factor? I mean, he is 70 years old now. He's a pretty young 70-year-old guy. He's pretty vibrant, but do you think that at 70 years old that it's too old to take on the task of New York City mayor? And some people would say, well, Trump is older than that, being the president. But it's a tough job being the New York City mayor if you actually do the job right. If you're not out partying all night, it could be a tough job. So I'm just curious. Somebody put the raspberry berets a bit much. That's hilarious. But what do you think? Do you think age is a factor in this, or you think solely just based on his politics?
I think no. I don't think age at all. I think he's a very vibrant 70. I would think he's got more vibrance than some of the 30-year-olds that are running around New York City. So for him, I mean, 70 could be a factor. It depends how you age. How your health is. He looks great to me. I mean, he's up every morning. He's still vibrant. I don't think it's age at all. I'm saying solely based upon not even the politics, because I think in the later years, his politics definitely align closer to mine than Eric Adams do. I just think is he a viable candidate? Could he get elected in New York City? And he gave the run. So did Nicole Malliotakis the election prior to him when she ran against Bill de Blasio. She's not a viable candidate either. She could win a congressional seat, but she's not winning a mayoral seat. And it's just what it is. So why are you going to run the same horse again? Oh, you got crushed last time. Let's run you again. Let's see what happens. What changed? What has changed? What changed about him? What the New York City residents like him better? I don't think so.
I think, unfortunately, you're right. I mean, that's what politics comes down to right now. It's like we need to pick the winning horse, and that's the bottom line. That pretty much at this point, even the first time around, I don't think Curtis Sliwa really stood a chance. And again, I think you're right. I think it was done by design. But on the second go around, I think he has no shot. Absolutely. And that's the problem is who is a viable candidate? And that's really the question at this point. Who is a viable candidate, especially in New York City? Who's actually going to vote the Republican ticket in New York City in opposition to Eric Adams? And I think most people like us and the listeners, our friends on the podcast, see through the bullshit of Eric Adams and this entire administration and the failures that are going on in this city. But I have to say, if you're not in this realm, Eric Adams and this administration does a great job of gaslighting the public. They do a great job of giving this image. And if you're just looking at the surface, excuse me, and if you're not looking below the surface, I think you could easily be bamboozled by this administration.
a friend called me the other day. He's still on the job. He's of a higher rank. And he literally told me what a great job Eric Adams doing for the NYPD. And I was like, I almost spit my water out. I was like, really? I was like, he's doing a great job. I was like, why? And he's like, I don't know. I was like, what's he doing? Like specifically, like what's better about your job? He's like, the job's bad. Everybody's leaving. I was like, okay. I was like, so he's not responsible for that? And like, I just went question after, and I wasn't mad about it. I was really curious why he thinks that. And he couldn't tell me why he thought it. He's like, I was like, so the job's bad. He's like, yeah, the job's bad. I was like, why? He's like, the guys running the job a little crazy now. They want a lot. The job changed so much. He was talking about the documentation of all the stuff they got to put in the body camera now. And he was saying how like it's insane. Like it's completely insane. And he doesn't have to do it. He's not a cop. But he was just saying, like, just looking at it, he's like, it's so different than when we were cops, dude. He's like, these guys, literally every stop, every car summons, every job, anything they do, they have to put it inside of the metadata of the body camera. So they have to go in at the end of their tour and update their body cameras. And if they don't, they're getting hammered. Right. And it's like a big like stat that like, oh, the metadata of the body camera, everything's got to be in there. So he's like, it's completely torturous. It's not the same job. And then they don't even have the time or the resources to actually police properly. And I'm like, okay, dude. So whose fault is that, bro? Whose fault? Who's making you do that? And he's like, well, the brass is. I say, okay. And who appointed the brass? He's like, Eric Adams. I was like, okay. So he's doing a great job. He's like, yeah, but it could be worse. I was like, it could always be worse, bro. I was like, but it doesn't sound like it's too good right now. So I don't know what you're talking about.
We could be dead. I mean, I and that's funny, right? That's the ideology. It's like, wow, it could be worse. Like, really? Could it? Because if it gets any worse, I mean, we're going to have 0 people working for the police department. You're not even going to be able to get outside the precinct with the amount of accountability and transparency that you have to do as far as documenting the police work that you actually do. Essentially, Ron Layson puts, sounds like everyone's supporting Harris. Can't say what her accomplishments have been. And that's usually I pose the same argument all the time. Okay, if you're voting for Harris or you're voting for Eric Adams, I just want to test your logic. And simple. Tell me their attributes that you're voting for. What do they stand for? What policies that you can say, you know what, that's something that I stand by? Or what's something that they implemented that, you know what, thank God that they're in office, that they created some change. Because, and I do believe this, and in order to be an effective leader, you have to make some form of change. You have to make some form of change so that you have a legacy, and then you actually put your foot on it, you put your finger on it to show that you're actually in a leadership position. But if you test anybody's logic, what could they really tell you? Why would they vote for Eric Adams? And basically what you would hear is exactly what you heard from that cop, a friend of yours, is it could be worse. So, pretty much, well, right now we see smoke, but we don't need to see fire. That's pretty much what he's saying.
Yeah. I mean, it's but joy. That's why you're voting for Kamala Harris, for joy. For, you're voting for communism and joy, for price controls. You want your unrealized gains to be taxed and joy. That's what you're voting for. And because you don't want the bad orange man in office. Get it. It's honestly, it's lunacy at this point. It's complete lunacy. Supporting Eric Adams is lunacy too. I support him for different reasons. Like I'm an Adam Adams. I'm on Team Adams for the 2025 election, just because, I mean, it's an unyielding stream of content. It's an unyielding stream of memes. They just continuously make themselves every hour, every moment, boom, 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 boom. And it's like, it's insane. It's honestly, it's laughable to watch it from a distance. But every time I'm in New York City, I feel like I want to cry because I'm like, what the hell happened to this place? So it's funny watching it from a distance. But when I go there, I'm not going to lie, it angers me because it doesn't. Things that are happening, it doesn't have to be that way, and the way the department's being ran is it doesn't have to be that way. Basically what's happening now is they're still continuing to play the perception game, right? They're painting this perception that's not real whatsoever, and they're attacking anybody that gives the reality or that gives an opinion or anything else. And at this press conference yesterday, I mean, it was clear as day. It was clear as day. The video is a little small. It's coming in from TikTok, but I mean, listen to this. It is pure gold. I still can't believe he said this.
It was a well-executed plan. And so some people would say, okay, well, 5 people were shot. Let's be clear. One nut shot 5 people. One, and we were just in that area. And so when you look at that one person who we're going to find that shot 5 people, you remove him from the equation, you got hundreds of thousands of people that were out this weekend and really heard the call of a peaceful Juve and a peaceful West Indian Day parade. So really hats off to the teams. And our hearts go out to the family members. I know one person died. We go out, our hearts goes out to the family members because you come out to celebrate. You don't want to come out and have that violence that we've seen in the past. That parade has always attracted a small element of people that wanted to commit violence. But we showed that if we come together, we can prevent that. And hats off to all those who were involved.
And, what do you think? I mean, it's just, I could talk about this for the next 4 hours, by the way.
Lily's saying it's coming in quiet. She's right. It is coming in kind of quiet. Is there any way to change the volume?
No, that's it. That's as loud as it is. That's as loud as it is, Lily.
Well, listen, the video, first of all, the video is amazing because, I mean, he's the only, like I said, if I decided that I wanted to go in the used car business, I would hire these guys in a second. I would have him he would sell cars to you every day. Listen, the thing is a success. The plan worked. Only one person shot at them. I mean, we could have 5 people shot at them. It was only one person that shot at them. This is cold, bro. Honestly, he is a cold cat to actually say this in such a manner. I mean, there's not an emotion and a feeling for him to say, wow, we lost, we lost someone's life. 5 people were shot. No, it was a huge success. You can't even make this up. This is insane. He's a cold cat, dude. Honestly, he's a cold individual.
Dude, he literally said this was a well-executed plan. He talked about how safe Juve was. He talked about how it was violent in the past. Then he was like, oh, yeah. But our condolences out to the person that died. Doesn't talk about the other 4 people that were just shot by random stray bullets. He says that they were there. So they were there. The cops were there. Someone just fires into the crowd randomly. 65-year-old woman gets hit. No big deal. Let's just brush that off. One's hitting the leg. One's hitting the ankle. One's hitting the head. And brushes all those other stray bullets off. He says how they were there, but they're going to catch the guy. So not only did a mass shooting occur at the West Indian Day Parade, on the parade route where NYPD cops were, they didn't even get the guy. And they still don't have him. Somebody died. Dude, this is literally the equivalent of the Vegas shooting where the guy was up in the thing and he was shooting. He's like, yeah, it was one guy. It was only one guy. It was one guy shooting from the thing. And, other than that, though, if you just take him out of the equation, it was a relatively safe concert. It was a safe concert. Just go by the numbers. There were hundreds of thousands of people there. Only a few people died. It was just one guy shooting. Get him out of the equation. It's no big deal. We did a great job. Hats off to the team.
I mean, this is also the same guy that behind closed doors was telling, what's his name, Chris Alba, hey, you're a cop. You know what? You can get shot. But other than that, it's pretty much an easy job. This is the same guy. You can care less that there's police officers everywhere at this parade and someone's firing into the crowd. It's absolutely ridiculous. And that's why we spoke about it yesterday. The amount of cover and concealment that you have on these parades is intense. And the perpetrator is still out in the wind. He may go and shoot other people. He may get into a shots fired with the police if there's any potential street legal encounter with this potential adversary. He doesn't mention that. Just totally, I'm saying he's totally emotionally detached, not invested in people in this city at all. To have this speech and to be so cold about it, And I hope people see right through it, not just us. I hope, and I know our listeners are our friends here, see right through it, but I hope that the residents of New York City see right through this. I mean, how can you say this is such a great plan and such a success? Someone fired into the crowd, and this maniac, homicidal maniac, because we did lose someone lost their life, is still out on the loose, has not been apprehended by the NYPD. And that person probably is super hypervigilant right now because they're wanted by the New York City Police Department. Whether they're identified at this point or not, it doesn't matter, because if a police officer comes into the crosshairs of this perpetrator, that police officer may find him or herself in a gun battle. And he doesn't mention that. Just completely evasive from what's actually important. Just talking about how beautiful and how festive it is. Only one person shot at them. No big deal. Just like when I used to have some of these liberal district attorneys, and sometimes we would have a firearm, an illegal firearm that we apprehended, and a couple of them would say, "Oh, why you guys make such a big deal about it? It's just a little gun. It's a little." Really? What do you think that little gun could do to you?
Yeah, Chris G says it's truly sad and pathetic when an event that has 5 people shot, 1 fatally, is deemed a success. I mean, that's exactly what he did. He deemed it a complete success. Hats off to the team. It was a well-executed plan. Meanwhile, you had a mass shooter shoot into the crowd. He shot 5 people. I don't know how many bullets he let go. I guarantee it wasn't 5. I guarantee it wasn't 5 because nobody's hitting unless it was just boom, 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 and he got extremely lucky. I highly doubt it. It was probably more like 10, 15 bullets led off into the crowd, and then has the ability to get away. Right? What happened to the drones? What happened to the cameras? What happened to the massive amount of cops that were going to be there? They were going to see everything and capture everything that moved, and it was going to be a whole complete police state at the West Indian Day Parade, and that failed miserably as well. But hey, hats off to the team. My condolences to the family, though. But historically, it's been more violent. So this is good. So I mean, the guy is completely out of his mind, dude. He's completely, he's completely like he doesn't his grasp on reality just isn't there. It's just not at all. I mean, he has his grasp of reality, and John Shell and Kaz Daughtry's is about the same. They're not able to see it. They're dangerous people, man. They're really dangerous people. At this point, you see how little he respects life in New York City, how little he respects the residents of New York City, and how little he understands about public safety. If you having a mass shooting at a parade where someone shot 5 people on a parade route where there's thousands of cops, and you deem that a success, you don't respect human life, nor do you understand public safety. This was a huge, utter failure.
Well, and that actually begs the question at this point. And the question is this: if that was a success, what was the plan? Was the plan, hey, if we have under 10 people shot, we're good? I mean, what was the plan? For him to say it's a success, I agree, that's a fantastic comment. Who put that comment? That was a great comment. I would rather him say, like, historically, even this year, it's extremely violent, and we're doing the best we can to stop the violence. But no matter what we do, the community continues to want this parade, and we're doing the best that we can. And we're so sorry someone lost their life. But to say the plan is success, well, what is the plan? He never says what the actual plan is. But to me, that's indicative. Well, the plan is, you know what? I don't know. Was it, hey, our number's under 6 people shot. Plan's great. Under 10. That's what it sounds like to me.
Chris Arnold says the drones were in selfie mode. And he says the plan is what it always is. Fake it until you make it. And that's 100%. So the drones, absolutely. The drones, the only successful thing we've seen the drones do so far is to help the virtue signaling of the New York City Police Department. They take very good selfies from the sky. They take a lot of good group pictures, because now this is what the NYPD does. Instead of actually provide public safety, is they take photos at these events. They take mean looking photos, And everybody, I'm like, wow, I wish I would have took photos when I was a cop. You know, if I had all those from when I was young, we did all the details together. And I was like, oh, you know what? I was busy actually doing my job, so I didn't have time to stand around and take photos. So, but you know, that's why we don't have a lot of photos. But that's the only successful program that the drones have partaken is to help their social media plan. So they take like these high over photos of all these people. Other than that, I mean, drones didn't save one people on New York City beaches this summer. The drones didn't prevent one shark attack on New York City beaches this summer. The drones haven't caught a stolen vehicle. The drones did not help catch the shooter. The only thing the drones have been successful is doing is aerial surveillance, but that's something that we knew about and they always did. And people have been using this technology for the last 10 years. So it's not anything innovative. You know what I mean? So it's
you know what's funny? And we say it all the time, right? The memes make themselves. But as you're talking, I'm thinking the next meme of a selfie stick connected to a drone. I mean, Chris Arnold, you're 100% right. I mean, that's what this is about, right? I mean, John Shell and Kaz Daughtry, they're more concerned with media tours and being celebrities of the NYPD than actually doing the right thing by public safety with this administration. This administration is all concerned about their egos. I mean, I think Adam's speech is completely ego-driven, making it about himself. Like, hey, I put this plan in place. This is success. Oh, there's only 5 people shot. Don't look at that. Because, you know what? 10 million people were safe. Well, 5 million, it's just 5 million people. What is the plan? There is no plan. And that's what's going on with this administration. Again, you know, I look at this picture, right? Everyone's looking at this picture come up. Who is it? Of course, it's the star of the show. It's Kaz Daughtry, who's on this live right now as we speak. It's Kaz Daughtry, right? And listen, I get it. You know, I don't know if this is part of his culture or not, or you know, you want to have fun, but unfortunately, you're at work and you can't partake in these festivities. I worked in the South Bronx. There's a lot of good stuff going on there. It was a lot of great people. But that wasn't my world. Getting illegal firearms, I dealt with a small percentage. I dealt with those violent perpetrators. That's what he should be doing at the parade. Listen, I get it. You got festivities. I know we want to give this impression that this is real community engagement. Tonight, community engagement. It's a nice gesture. But really, you should be out there mentally exhausted, working to make sure that no one is shot. But to actually, it's almost insulting to the people that 5 people are shot. 1 person lost their life. And this is the iconic video and the iconic picture that is going to come out of it. Your NYPD leadership is sitting there. It doesn't matter what time it happened, having fun while 5 people were shot. And we're talking about it's a success. The whole thing is just a complete insult to New York City residents. I just think it's absolutely ridiculous. And it's insulting to the cops because the cops are out there in a position where they could have got shot too.
I mean, dude, look at how he's dressed. He's got dress pants on, sneakers on, a polo on, a hat on, a baseball cap, and then you have your cops out there in full uniform, sweating, you know, and none of them match. None of them. You have John Shell. He has a quadruple X shirt on. His sleeves are down to he has short sleeves on, but the shirt's so big that his sleeve's almost down to his wrist. I mean, you know, he's a complete mess. But he's the only one in actual uniform. The other guy's wearing a quasi uniform with a gun belt on, the deputy commissioner of public safety. None of them, they don't look like professionals, dude. I'm sorry. Like, would you see Ray Kelly dancing at any parade? I mean, the St. Patty's Day parade? No. He'd be there in a suit with a stoic look upon his face, and he's worried about everything else that's going on. This guy doesn't look worried about anything. He's probably just worried that everyone's taking a picture of him all season. That's what he's more worried about. He's worried that he's worried about his celebrity more than he's worried about what's happening in New York City. These guys paint themselves and want to be celebrities. They don't even care about the respect aspect. The respect to them is being a celebrity. Respect to them is the cops who come running over. Oh, hey, can I take a picture with you, boss? Oh, thank you for everything. That's what they want. That's what they believe is respect. The immaturity level is unbelievable. And when anyone asks, oh, like what could have been done differently to prevent someone from shooting into a crowd? I'm just going to show this picture right here. You could have had people actually doing their job instead of virtue signaling.
John, you nailed it, brother. I say that all the time. It's exactly what it is. It's virtual signaling. Look, community, I'm out there with you. I'm dancing with you. Don't worry about all those guys shooting at each other. I'm out there with you dancing. It looks foolish. It looks ridiculous. I know you want to say you're a nice guy and you're out there with the community. You want them to love you. And this is all about celebrity status. I agree that these guys are not even concerned with the actual respect aspect. These guys are glory hounds. They're absolutely glory hounds. They want to be celebrities. It's about their egos. They want to be in every photo. They want to be, that's the guy. Oh, that's Kaz Daughtry. They want everyone to know him. He wants everyone to know him. Every citizen, oh, that's Kaz Daughtry. He wants every cop to know him. Really? And you know what's funny? John, I'm so glad you brought that up because I remember seeing that picture, and that's the first thing that came to my mind. You know, would Ray Kelly be doing that? Ray Kelly, former Marine, stoic, right? And sometimes his face when he was at a scene was stone cold, like he was about business. He was worried about business. He wasn't worried about taking these photos. Would you see him dancing around? No, I would have no problem if he was dancing around on his own time doing karaoke. But when he was at work, he meant business. And that was the iconic image that you have of a police commissioner. Again, I say, think of former police commissioners, Ray Kelly, Teddy Roosevelt, and then we put Kaz Daughtry, who will soon be the police commissioner, in the same conversation. Can we actually put these men in the same conversation? I'm sure Juju will, but can we? I think not.
I mean, again, look at this photo. You know, why is there a civilian in uniform? Nobody can answer that question. Why does he have a gun belt on? He's in uniform. I don't understand it, dude. Like, I don't understand it. None of them look the same. Again, you know, someone made the statement that, oh, if you were a transit cop, you could wear your magazine sideways. Guess what? John Shell's the chief of patrol, not the chief of transit. You want to lead from the front, right? Turn your magazine holders up. Turn your magazines over. That's what you expect your cops to do. They get CDs if they don't. I don't care if you're original transit cop, which I don't think he was, by the way. But even if he was, doesn't matter. You hammer your cops. You make sure your cops are hammered if their magazines aren't turned up right side up. So turn yours up. You can't even do that. You know, you can't even do that. And again, this is just more virtue signal. And this is from Kaz Daughtry. The Gotham brothers are at it again. They are doing what we are doing what we do best. Keeping New Yorkers safe. This executive team leads from the front. Where our cops are, we are right there with them. We outside too.
First of all, listen, one of the most important key leadership principles to actual leadership is to lead by example. I think that you don't even have to have ever been in a leadership position to know that terminology. Most people have heard that because there's nothing more true than that. You have to lead by example. And just that picture alone with him with his John Shell with his magazines turned sideways just shows they're not leading by example. They're on a different page. It's okay for them, but not okay for the subordinates. And again, there's no unison anymore. There's no unison and uniform in this administration. When you pulled up that picture, John, all three of them have a different uniform. Where is the unison? How do we lead by example and expect our uniform personnel, our rank and file, boots on the ground, to be in unison? But the three of them have three different uniforms. I mean, Tariq Shepard has his full gun belt with in civilian clothes. Kaz Daughtry's got his baseball cap on, and John Shell is in full uniform, in uniform of the day. There is absolutely no unison. Again, this administration is not leading by example, not setting the example. John Shell and Kaz Daughtry are more concerned with media tours, bullying tactics on social media. And again, I will say it. I don't know how many chiefs are on the job, but if there's 20 chiefs on the job and 2 of them are bullying people and they're acting completely unprofessional and they're doing things that are just violate social media policy of the New York City Police Department. And honestly, it's an act of terror. Pretty much they should be headed to 500 Pearl Street. Do we have all good chiefs in the police department? I'll tell you right now, I'm going to say this, and I'll say it publicly. Every one of them is bad right now because none of them are speaking out about the atrocities that are going on with this leadership that just embarrasses the iconic Shield. I mean, look at this picture right now. He's smiling while he stands next to Al Sharpton. Is this not insulting to the rank and file? This is by far an insult. How can anyone say that this administration supports the cops? They support themselves. That picture right now, I think we could decipher that picture. That picture could take hours. That picture speaks volumes to me. John, let's jump right into this picture.
So, I mean, again, we titled this episode that New York City Mayor and NYPD Management downplayed a mass shooting. And not only does this picture downplay the mass shooting, and this picture may have happened prior to it. I don't know that it did, but it may have. But this tweet comes out from New York's NYPD's Chief of Patrol, John Schell, at 6:44 p.m. on September 2nd. So this is after there was a mass shooting occurred on the parade route in front of hundreds of officers, and the perp got away. And he got away. So it was a highlight. It was an absolute failure, complete, utter failure by the leadership of the NYPD. It was a complete, utter public safety failure. Somebody lost their life. A 65-year-old woman was struck with a random stray bullet. Other innocent people were struck by stray bullets. And they had the nerve to go out there and say it was an intended targets. They had the nerve. So 5 people were intended targets? No. Someone opened fire into the crowd. And this is what John Schell writes with this photo that, honestly, I'm going to hang this photo, John, because it just shows how disgusting. I when I see this photo, and we're going to get into him in a little bit, but when I see this photo, but the rumor is that John Schell, and I don't know this to be true, but John Schell is going to get 3/4. John Schell is rumored to, if he gets 3/4, make about $28,000 a month in his pension. And then it's rumored that he took a job at Newsmax to be the head of security and make $700,000 a year. Now, I don't know that that's true, and I don't care. I mean, it sounds about right that something happened with Newsmax, because they used to call me about 4 or 5 times a day. And now they haven't called me in about 2 months since they built this network team and the factual agenda. But John Schell for Newsmax is going to turn out to be the Dylan Mulvaney for Budweiser, because what they're going to see is that people are so tired of hearing lies. So this picture, when I see this picture and I think about, oh, John Schell, he's going to make $28,000 a year allegedly, and then plus another $700,000. I wouldn't trade places with him for all of the gold and all of the money in the world. And this picture, honestly, it just the Bible quote just continuously pops in my head. For what does it profit a man to inherit the whole world but lose his soul? And that's what that is right there. So I wouldn't trade places with you for a second. So your whole team that you're continuing to build, congratulations. And this is what he tweets. Today's West Indian Day parade was a vibrant celebration of Caribbean heritage and pride. From colorful costumes to lively dances down the parkway, the festivities were amazing. NYPD officers maintained high visibility to ensure a safe environment for everyone.
Again, more gaslighting. John and I were speaking about this offline before we went live, several minutes before. And we were talking about this potential rumor that's going on with John Schell. Maybe Juju could bring some light to it. $28,000 a month pension. God bless you. Sounds great. 3/4. I don't know why you need 3/4. I don't know what you're doing out there with these vehicle pursuits that you need 3/4. And a potential career making $700,000 a year for Newsmax. And you said, hey, John, right? You said, hey, you could sell your soul. You could have that too. And you know what? I don't want any part of it. I don't want dirty money because honestly, for me, I look at John Shell and I think of dirty money. I really do because you're standing there smiling while Eric Adams and Al Sharpton, I think this photo was amazing. They look like they're laughing at you. Like, look at this idiot, right? Look at this idiot cracker over here pandering to us. It wasn't that long ago that John Shell was talking shit about Eric Adams, like every other chief on this job, talking about how much of an empty suit he was, talking about how Al Sharpton was a complete race baiter, complete disdain. He put out rhetoric of the police department that made it dangerous for the New York City Police Department. He's went after cops. He has created a tax burden for the taxpayer and numerous obstacles for the police department. And he's standing there smiling, selling his soul. Is it worth the money? For me, absolutely not. There is no money worth that smile in that photo. Franco says it should be mentioned most cops take a vacation during the West Indian Parade or IVD. You know, that's quite interesting that you say that. I think there are plenty of cops that don't want to work this parade because it's just out of control. Every year it's violent. And I wish they would just be honest to the public. Like, listen, this is a violent parade and we are doing best we can with the cars that were dealt with. It's extremely difficult to have visibility. To say that they were highly visible is absolutely ridiculous because there's more cover and concealment in this parade than anywhere. If I was going to commit a crime, this would be the spot. This is the opportunity of a lifetime. This is gold for anybody to commit a crime. And John Shell just completely sold his soul, if he ever had one, John, because honestly, I don't know if he ever had one because he already has a body under his belt. He's out there laughing and smiling. How these guys, honestly, they're stone cold. Just show it's all self-serving. I've been saying this since day one. They have no interest in public safety. How could you be standing there smiling when someone was just killed at the parade route that you're in charge of? Your administration is in charge. And I would say we failed. And John, you know, if it was me and you in charge, we would have no problem saying, hey, we're doing the best we can. This is violent every year, but we failed. Someone died. I don't know what to tell you. You continue. The community continues to want this parade. What are we going to do? We're doing the best we can do. This is horrible. And to say the rhetoric that John Shell put out, his words were intentional, that the shots fired were intentional. So a 60-some-odd-year-old woman was shot. That was intentional. For you to lie to the public is insane. That's a shot fired into the crowd, and we're lucky it was only 5 because it could have been more. And again, there's a lot of information, a lot of contacts missing from that shooting that they did not release to the public.
So, and then like a child, he continuously comes at this podcast, a small independent podcast hosted by 2 retired lieutenants who have basically 0 endorsements because they've talked so badly about us, spread so many lies and defamed us that people are afraid to piss off the almighty NYPD, the once almighty NYPD. And so this is what John Shell puts out. Come join me tomorrow morning and throughout the day as we discuss the various topics from this past Labor Day and more. Grateful for the weekly opportunities to discuss the factual narrative and the daily hard work of our police officers. And he puts in Martha McCollum, Fox News, Pat Kiernan, Rosanna Scotto, Arthur Idala. John, I'm just going to tell you one more time. You are going on corporate news. The people that watch news traditionally aren't up on the times. You're targeting the elderly voters, the elderly low-informed voters who listen to Fox News and take it as gold. The average rank and file, the majority of today's Americans no longer listen to this. They just don't. They don't. The mainstream media has become the independent voice. People are done hearing your factual narrative. They're done being talked at and talked to. That's why this platform is a lot different than anything that the Gotham brothers will ever create or ever go on, is because this is the arena of ideas. right? We don't shy away. When you come on here with your fake accounts, or you send your little paid goons to attack us on social media behind fake handles, or you send your criminal buddies to try to threaten us, we don't shy away. We answer the questions. We have the discussion. We're not afraid to partake in a conversation at any time of the day. Where you are, my friend, you're going on the news to talk to people, to tell them how safe Labor Day was and how to downplay a mass shooting. So not only should you be ashamed of yourself because you already gave up your soul, but so should everyone that sits there and smiles at your face and lets you say those things, because it's so disrespectful to the families. It's so disrespectful to the men and women who serve underneath you. And it's so disrespectful to the residents in New York City. So all of these things that you put out there, like, oh, look at me and my celebrity, they all just sold their soul too, my friend. They all just diminish themselves. Again, you are the Dylan Mulvaney of the corporate media for New York. You will be the downfall of them. So we appreciate you. Keep going on the media. We love it. It's great. Thank you.
You know what I appreciate about this? Because as you're speaking, Juju, on behalf of John and Kaz and all their people that are behind this handle, are actually responding to you in real time. As you're talking, they respond to you. And just shows the envy for this podcast and the jealousy, because what we're saying is right. John really thinks he's the main character. I'm here to tell you right now, we don't care about your little podcast. If you don't care, why are you listening? If you don't care, why are you responding? And I think it's so unprofessional by this administration, and I'll say it again. For everyone that's behind this handle, despite whatever rank you are, every chief on this job right now, I find every chief on this job, I condemn you, and I find you guilty. Guilty that you have John Shell and Kaz Daughtry at the forefront, and Tariq Shepard also, Three Stooges, acting extremely unprofessional in the public, bullying the public for giving their criticism. And guess what, John, you know it. We are the public. Our friends and listeners on the podcast right now, we are the public. Even if you're active and retired, you are the public right now. And we have these two idiots embarrassing the police department and every other chief that stands there idle and doesn't speak a word. Well, guess what? You're an idiot and you're an embarrassment also, because the rank and file, they have duty, according to the NYPD patrol guide, to report corruption. And guess what? That goes for you also. Every chief in the New York City Police Department right now, you failed to report corruption. You see the bullying tactics by John Shell and Kaz Daughtry on a daily basis, trying to control the narrative. And you have these two idiots referring to themselves as Gotham Brothers. Is that professional? On a professional account from the New York City Police Department, they're referring to themselves as Gotham Brothers. And yet we have police officers that have been punished, and they were forced to remove a patch of a Punisher on their vest. But yet these two guys, these two clowns, can refer to themselves as Gotham Brothers. Completely, they do not lead by example. Embarrassing. Am I right, John? We have cops getting in trouble for wearing a Punisher patch, and these two call themselves Gotham Brothers.
Dude, he writes this morning, Rosanna Scotto, who is another Eric Adams sycophant, who honestly, pathetic too. Rosanna, nobody listens to you anymore either. Nobody cares. You know, you're just on in the offices because it's easy and they have cable on there. That's it. Coming up, we talk crime in New York City with Chief of Patrol and Daughtry. What's on your mind? Good day, New York. She'll never ask a question that you put on there anyway, so it's a waste, and that's why you see only 5 people respond to her. And John Shell says, where is the coffee? In the green room? Like a child, like a complete, utter child. And then he goes into crime, 3 minutes, right? He wants to put this up. Yes, overall major crime in New York City is down for 2024, along with violence, with shooting violence. August 2024 was the safest month for shooting violence in 30 years. Those are the facts. Take a look. I know facts are hard for some people, but it is what it is. Safest big city in America. So year to date, crime overall is down 2.4%. But overall, violent major crime since Eric Adams took office is up 32%, and he continues to ignore that. Violent major crime since John Shell has become the chief of patrol is up about 4%. Overall crimes up about 20%, a little bit over 20% since New York City Mayor Eric Adams took office and this administration took office. So again, he's touting victory. He's calling victory over what? I don't know. This is an embarrassment. And again, like we said, the fudging of numbers is absolutely ridiculous. We pointed out to the story, and I don't think we brought it up here on the show because I think it happened over the weekend. But in Staten Island, there was a young boy who was robbed at the movie theater at the Staten Island Mall. He was beaten up, dragged across the floor, punched and kicked by his school bag, and his school bag was stolen. That, my friends, is the definition of a robbery. The mother called the police. She complained that her son was robbed. The people who beat up and robbed her son are still at large, 10-year-old or 11-year-old boy, still at large. And the NYPD, when the Staten Island Advance called them to ask for comment, they said that a report was taken, and it was taken for petty larceny. So complete downgrading of crimes that's occurring. And even while they downgrade these crimes, and even while they're stopping to take reports for most crimes, crime continues to rise. And again, in January 2024, when 2024 ends and 2025 starts in January 1st, crime will be down a slight percentage. But when the random audits of a random sampling comes in, and not every complaint is going to get audited, but when these random samples get done, and there's not a lot, maybe 20 per command or whatever it is, when they get done, crime will rise. And I think and you'll see that for 2024, we were completely gaslit the whole time. They hid numbers. They didn't report crime. They downgraded crime. And what you're going to see is that crime will actually have been up in 2024. And that's what's happened the last 3 years of Eric Adams' administration. And the only way it won't is if they stop the audits. That's the only way it won't, or if they lessen the amount of audits, which I could 100% see this administration doing because they're the least transparent administration in New York City history. This is an absolute disgust. I'm telling you, it's actually criminal what they're doing. It's completely criminal.
I'm actually going through John Shell's tweets right now. Juju, you're probably looking at your tweets right now too. And you know what? This guy tweets like crazy. But I'm trying to find. There was a tweet. It was hysterical where he referred, and he lumped in. By the way, he referred to this particular robbery in Staten Island and tried to maneuver and manipulate like everything else they do, just as they do with the shooting at the West Indian Parade, and said it was intentional on this particular crowd, where he tried to navigate and say it wasn't a robbery, and actually referred to me, John, Sal Greco, and lumped in Sam Antar. So, I guess to give the illusion that that we're putting Sam Antar out there. Sam Antar actually acts on his own volition. He's a grown man and acts on his own. But he referred to us as four dummies because we were saying it was a robbery. I mean, the penal law itself, anybody ever has an opportunity, the first page of the penal law says that crime is probable cause is based on the standards that it's what a reasonable person would believe based on common sense standards. So based on common sense standards, if someone's bag is stolen and they're assaulted, assault and theft equals robbery. It's common sense. It's very simple. So for John Shell to refer to me and John and Sam Antar and Sal Greco as dummies from a professional account is absolutely ridiculous, And this is what you're seeing from this administration. Just again, protecting his own ego. Even if we had put out information that wasn't true, why do you even care? But it just solidifies that this podcast puts out accurate information. And the information that this administration puts out is nothing but gaslighting. It's inaccurate. It's complete lies. I say this all the time. If I lose 100 pounds this year and next year I lose 20 pounds, are we celebrating that I lost 20 pounds? No, I still gained 80 pounds. Chris Arnold, that's an outstanding comment. By the way, I actually called John this morning. I texted him. I said, John Shell is actually Penguin from Batman, and I'm sure he already knows that. And Cass Daughtry, they're probably up on our phones. I mean, they've tried to obtain all the information about us as we speak. So I'm sure they're probably up on our phones anyway. That's okay. We got nothing to hide. But again, here we go. Here's more gaslighting, more pictures, more festive pictures from this administration, not acknowledging the violence. They seem to take more part in the festivities in this particular parade than actually taking part in doing police work. Here is your administration. Here is your administration under New York City Mayor Eric Adams.
Dude, I don't know if you guys can see it, but look at the most insignificant police commissioner, Ed Caban's shirt. I don't know if you guys can see it, but it's honestly, it's like a Havana Cuban shirt.
It's a whatever.
It has the police commissioner patch on it, and it's embroidered. And it's like, you pay for that, people. You're paying for all this embroidery, and they don't even wear it nice. Like, look, sneakers again. Like, everybody's wearing sneakers. I've never seen the First Dep not in sneakers. Everybody's in running shoes. No one's ever in uniform. And it's just a complete mishmash of everything, and it's just all gaslight. Oh, it was the safest day ever. It was the safest West Indian Day parade ever. But this is what they're doing. They're completely downplaying everything that happened. And guess what sparked up again recently in New York City? The college campuses. Protest at Baruch College yesterday. Pro-Israel protest, anti-Israel protest. I mean, this is going to be the fall. Traditionally would be a let up from the summer details, but you're not going to see that. You're just going to see it go crazier. We have the UN coming. I mean, New York City is a mess right now.
It's completely a mess right now, and it's at the behest of this administration right now. We talk about small unit leadership breakdown. And that's why I say your friend that thinks that things are better under Mayor Eric Adams doesn't understand how leadership breakdown works. This administration is under the leadership of Mayor Eric Adams. Everything that goes on in the police department, positive or negative, and unfortunately most of it right now is negative, especially with morale, the retention problem that we have, the problem of getting recruits, this whole DEI movement within the police department is the fault of Mayor Eric Adams and also your chiefs. At every level, someone has to take blame in leadership. And it starts with Mayor Eric Adams, goes down to the chiefs, and it continues down the line with leadership. But especially right now, the chiefs who are appointed by Mayor Eric Adams to be in those positions. The police commissioner, the most insignificant police commissioner, was appointed. He's standing there wearing a whatever. I mean, I'm trying to think of that Cuban restaurant in Manhattan I used to go to, and the waiters wear it. And that's what I think of when, and it's a nice shirt, don't get me wrong. It's a nice shirt, represents a lot of Puerto Rican people wear it, a lot of Dominican people. It's a really cool shirt. But is that something that our police commissioners should be wearing? Absolutely not. What happened to working in unison and being professional and wearing a police uniform? Or he's a police commissioner, he's a civilian. He should be wearing a suit. And I get it. You want to be festive and show your and show pride in Hispanic society, but this is not even a Hispanic parade. This is the West Indian parade. And the West Indians don't wear whateers. So it's absolutely ridiculous. This administration just walks to the drum of their own beat. There's no support of their rank and file. I don't even know why the rank and file even listens anymore to this administration. Look how many uniforms right now we have in the police department. We have general population. We have these deputy commissioners. We have khaki pants. I've never seen so many uniforms within the NYPD. We totally lost uniformity. We need to bring that back. I thought we were going old school, John Shell. We've lost it. It is far gone. You know what? We just need a complete overhaul. We need an overhaul. And again, I'll say everyone in this administration, you keep your mouth shut. You're responsible for the failures that are going on with this police department. When John Shell gaslights the public, and if you don't say a word, you're gaslighting the public. But all I hear is excuses. Oh, this person's only an inspector. This person is just the chief of this. Like, no one can do anything. No one can do anything. No one can say a word. So right now, if John Shell ordered, God forbid, if he ordered a hit on John and Eric, what would they do? There's nothing we could do. He said we got to do it. But that's what goes on with this administration.
Oh, and exactly. And you see the gaslighting at the West Indian Day Parade. And that's why, to me, you just got a mass shooting downplayed. And when cops are like, no, it's a great thing that they encrypted the radios. It's like, all right, dude, if something happens to you and they want to downplay it, guess what? They're just going to say it didn't happen. You think they care about you? They don't care about you, bro. They don't care about your friend, your family, your wife, your kids, nothing. So that's why we're against the encryption. That's why we're against the encryption of radio, because it's right in your face. Everyone saw it. It was a mass shooting in front of everybody's face. Random people were struck, and they're saying it was a safe day and nothing happened. Just remove that. No big deal. No big deal. So let's just talk about how little Eric Adams knows about the NYPD. So for those of you that don't know, Randy Maestro, he is a lawyer that Eric Adams is looking to replace the old head of Corporation Counsel with, because she did not want to indemnify him and his low integrity buddies for their numerous sexual assault lawsuits that they have, sexual assault and sexual harassment lawsuits that they have. So she was asked to resign from her job. So he wants to put Randy Maestro in. The lefty city council attacked him pretty good. The right-wingers in city council completely bootlicked for the NYPD. I'm sorry, for New York City Mayor Eric Adams. They became Eric Adams sycophants. Obviously, as you saw, Vicky Palladino talk in code also about this podcast and suggest that we put out racist memes while ignoring the fact that they come from New York City mayor's own racist statements. So you saw how completely bootlicked for Randy Maestro. So, but the lefty council, I think they went at him pretty good, and I think they had a lot of what they were saying was very important, especially around Bridgegate, where he had an innocent woman take the fall, arrested, potentially almost went to jail, but the Supreme Court overturned it for Bridgegate that Chris Christie did. So the guy's a complete legal bulldog. The lefty city council went after him, and I think they did a pretty good job of calling him out. I could bring up some tweets in a little bit about that. But when he was asked about the treatment of Randy Maestro, he said that on every city building, the NYPD's motto of courtesy, professionalism, and respect should be there. Unfortunately for Eric Adams, that's no longer the motto for the NYPD. The NYPD recently spent $175,000 to change their slogan on all the patrol cars. We went away from courtesy, professionalism, respect, and it went to fighting crime and protecting the public. Good job, Greg. But I think it's horrible. I think that it's a bad look for the NYPD. And I think that we should have kept courtesy, professional, and respect. But our own mayor doesn't know it. Our own mayor doesn't know it because, and I just got sent this. You're going to laugh at this. John Shell was talking about where's the coffee in the green room. Kaz Daughtry retweeted Rosanna Scotto 6 minutes ago because they're going on. Looking forward. What's on my mind? Bacon, egg, cheese, and apple juice. These guys are complete children, and this is where your tax dollars are going. Millions upon millions of dollars are being misused, and police resources are being misused and ran by absolute incompetent, low integrity children.
Isn't it ironic that in 6 minutes they'll be going on with Rosanna Scotto, and it's been much less rhetoric and much less trolling from Juju today? I'm just putting two and two together. It's quite interesting. Usually Juju is on fire cooking, trolling this podcast. But again, absolutely ridiculous. Let's go back to, let's talk about what's important here. Why are we removing CPR? That is the iconic slogan. That's the iconic acronym for the New York City Police Department. The entire world, and I say that, the entire world knows that CPR is the acronym for the New York City Police Department, courtesy, professional, respect. But again, Mayor Eric Adams just wants to put a twist on it that's completely ineffective because he has no business ever being a cop. And sure enough, he has no business being a mayor. He's a complete moron, a complete idiot. And I honestly, I just think at this point, he's just completely emotionally detached, has no concern for people. That speech alone, the speech that he provided in response to the West India Parade, shows how emotionally detached, has no concern for people, truly doesn't care, and he just sees himself as a monarch and a king. Now, let's shift gears. I think this is an outstanding photo. Again, the memes make themselves. This robot that the police department fancied around under the behest of Mayor Eric Adams, bragging about the technology. It was a complete epic fail. Like we see many things in the police department, didn't last very long in the transit system. But now, according to Mayor Eric Adams, it's going to be reassigned. And it's hysterical. Again, we see the memes make themselves. The memes make themselves because this administration is extremely laughable. I can't believe that we're actually surviving in the city right now. I'm amazed that the streets actually still have street signs and people are actually walking around living life, because with a mayor like this, it could be completely just destroyed, implode, and up in smoke. Let's read out this tweet. This is absolutely laughable. It's hysterical. Again, more wasted money by the police department. More wasted money that the taxpayer is going to burden because of the failures of this administration.
Well, I mean, so the whole thing, that whole pilot program was a waste. That was the transit robot of the future. It ended up in a broom closet. It lasted only a few days. It needed a security team, about 6 officers. It kept absolutely no one safe. It did absolutely nothing except it was an attraction for people in the Grand Central. That was it. That was all it did. It needed 6 officers to keep it safe. Needed 6 officers to keep it from falling onto the platform. Thing was completely useless. Didn't provide public safety at all. We saw Kemper, Adams, Kaz Daughtry, all of them cheer on this robot like it was going to be the next best thing going. So Adams yesterday, to just show how completely unattached he is to what's going on in New York City, he said at the press conference that the controversial K5 robot that briefly patrolled the subway station is out on a new assignment, and it will be announced in later days. Right? So then, of course, the press is like, well, what the hell is he talking about? It's out on a new assignment. I thought it was in a broom closet. Right? So then they call. But then later that day, his office says the robot's currently not deployed anywhere, and there's no new contract for it. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He's not invested. He's not in the game. He's out every night. He's partying. He's giving keys to his celebrity crushes to the city. He doesn't know what's going on. He's downplaying mass shootings. This guy's an absolute disaster. His management team of all of the New York City agencies, I mean, the most epic fail has been the New York City Police Department by far, but the DOE is not far behind. Of all the New York City agencies need to go from start to finish. All of these commissioners need to start looking for jobs. And some of them are. I mean, you're going to see a lot of people come down. But this is how unattached he is. This is how unattached. He doesn't even understand what's happening in his city that he supposedly runs.
I think it's perfect and fitting. In the New York Times, Albert Fox Khan, the executive officer of the Surveillance Technology Oversight Project, a privacy and civil rights group, had a more dismissive view of this 400-some-odd-pound robot, and he referred to it as a trash can on wheels. He called it a trash can on wheels. I think that statement was spot on. That robot is exactly that. It's a trash can on wheels. More gaslighting from this administration. This whole ideology of moving to artificial intelligence is completely insulting to the human element. The New York City Police Department, the most iconic police department, the boots on the ground. You cannot replace the human element with this 400-pound robot that is completely useless. We saw it. I mean, listen, we see time and time again, even not under this administrations prior. The police department is famous for trying different things. They go through fads and they evolve. It doesn't work. They try something else. But this administration in particular, is really trying to focus on technology. Most of the technology that they focus on has been used years prior, has been used in other facets where it wasn't effective or it was used in a minimal, limited basis and supplemental to what's actually going on with the human element, and they don't acknowledge it. They want to lie to the public and let them believe that it's something so impressive, something so new. Even when the police department started to utilize shot spotter technology, they were parading that around. And there's actually some studies that prove that the shot spotter technology doesn't benefit and do any better when it comes to 911. It makes the police officer respond a little quicker, but it doesn't stop the shootings. But shot spotter detection is something that we had in 2003 when I was in Iraq. And now we start going over this stuff with drones. Again, the drones, is it useful and supplemental? Yes, but it's supplemental. Is this transit robot useful? I think there's absolutely no use for it. I think it's a waste. It's obtuse. It's 400 pounds. If anything, it's more laughable than anything. It's not a viable tool, and we clearly see it. It's a waste of money.
So, and then John Shell puts this out last night. It was kind of early. It wasn't his usual 10 o'clock drinking hour. He must have been day drinking yesterday. So he's probably slept in after being out, So he
got to be up early today.
He puts out in quotations, Gotham Brothers. So predictable and easy. Shaking my head. Excited about the new platforms and partnerships that we are developing to enhance our, quotations, factual narrative. An arena for anyone who wants to hear our message or join in to discuss it. Hopefully up and running soon. Game changer. There will be a mute button with a wink. So he's going to create a new platform and partnerships so that they can enhance their factual narrative, not the actual factual narrative. And it's an arena for anyone who wants to hear their message. And he says join in, but he also says there'll be a mute button. So, of course, questions aren't allowed, thoughts and opinions aren't allowed. Just like you're not allowed to comment on Kaz Daughtry's Instagram or John Shell's Instagram or the chief of department's Instagram or the NYPD's Instagram, which is actually illegal, by the way. But, everything, there is no laws anymore in New York City. The laws don't apply to the NYPD and the laws don't apply to New York City mayor or the people around him, obviously.
Yeah, and that's why I'm going to reiterate what I said earlier, that every chief is actually held responsible, liable, and accountable for the unprofessionalism by these two characters, John Shell and Kaz Daughtry of the New York City Police Department, especially what's going on social media. We have policy that violates it, according to New York City, according to the NYPD Patrol Guide. These chiefs right now are just sitting idle. They're all responsible, all accountable. I mean, we expect police officers to report corruption amongst each other. And if not, they're held extremely accountable and to some extreme discipline. And yet we have chiefs that just sit idle while we have other chiefs actually just committing crimes on social media through their bullying tactics and the electioneering that goes on through John Shell. It's interesting that he put on that tweet. On that tweet, he says that you could join in, that they want to have conversations. You want to hear their messaging. We invited them on this podcast so that we could hear their messaging and that we could also have a two-way conversation. I always say opposition meets opportunity. I don't respect you and I don't have to, but if you come on this podcast, we will be professional and we will show you respect and we will hear you out despite the fact that you act like little children and that you're completely unprofessional. You embarrassed the most iconic shield in the entire world. At the same token, we would allow you to sit here and give your message. Will we debunk your narrative? Absolutely. Will we tell you what we believe is misinformation, and we'll actually present the factual data to combat it, unlike what you do besides rhetoric? Absolutely. But we would be willing to have a professional conversation. The question is, could you? And the answer is no, and you said it, right? There will be a mute button. There will be a mute button. But instead of a mute button, I think the two of you need a muzzle. Because the stuff that comes out of your mouth is embarrassing, and you're embarrassing the entire police department. So at this point, I'm asking, when is one chief going to step up and say, we had enough, and you're embarrassing every one of us, and you failed the police department, and no longer do we want to hear this rhetoric? Will we hear someone stand up? I would say the answer is no. Clearly, no one stood up during the mandate. No one stood up when I had 8 sets of charges in 6 weeks. No one stood up for Sal Greco. No one stood up for Marlon Bethel. Why would anything change right now? The only thing that's changed right now is that we are here together, our listeners and our friends at a podcast, and me and John, and we're speaking out the truth that people are afraid to speak. Just like John always says, I agree with him. Talking about things we're not supposed to talk about. And if Juju, you don't like it, too bad, so sad.
Yeah, so migrants are flooding New York City's justice system, making up 75% of the arrests in Midtown as pathetic sanctuary city laws handcuff the cops. And again, I think this is more gaslighting. This just alleviates the upper echelon of the NYPD from actually what's happening. What's happening is they're going to tell you that none of this is true. They're going to tell you, and then when it comes out that it's true, they're going to tell you, well, it's the sanctuary city laws. But it's not the fact that they're not even reporting the crime. They're not arresting people when the crimes happen. I mean, we saw it clear as day what happened with Laura Loomer a while back. You think that was a random one-off? This is happening hundreds of times a day in New York City. We just told you about the little boy on Staten Island, right? It was a robbery, and it got downgraded to a petty larceny. This is happening hundreds and hundreds of times a day throughout New York City. At the end of the year, there are thousands and thousands of crimes that were underreported or not reported at all. So whatever the crime numbers are at this point are not a factual narrative, right? What do you think? What do you think John Schell and Kaz Daughtry's response to this article would be?
I think you nailed it. I think that they would actually just try to manipulate this actual title in the story and say exactly that. And I think that what they would say is that this is actually consolidated in a dense, isolated area, and that it doesn't encompass the entire city. I can already envision, because I used to go to Comstat constantly, especially working the South Bronx. I was at Comstat pretty much every 4 to 6 weeks. And then manipulating tactics that we hear is regurgitated from John Schell, but even further gaslighting from John Schell. But I think that's, if I had to put my money on it, I would say that he would say that it's condensed and it's isolated to a specific area, because there are specific areas where we have a high conglomerate of illegal aliens or migrants in specific areas. And I would say that he wouldn't say it's not encompassing the entire city. And it would probably something like where we hear from Jeffrey Madry, because Jeffrey Madry is famous for saying that if you actually look at the individual precincts, it will actually skew the data. And I believe that's where they would go. But what's interesting about that also, John, is the fact that it's a sanctuary city. So we don't document immigration status. But the fact that we actually have the data that 75% of those crimes are from immigration status, I would like to know where this is being documented. And obviously it's not being documented in some type of database, but it's easy to compile when most of these people that are being arrested, I'm sure when they do the pedigree cards, so when you get the pedigree information, their address is Roosevelt Hotel, Randall's Island, or undomiciled.
Yeah, and speaking of the Bronx, here's a chart I just pulled up that came out from our friend Reza Chowdhury. Bronx violent crime, the year 2000 to 2024. Right? You see in 2000, it's all the way up. Crime's all the way up. And you see it drop to a low in 2008. You see it start to rise again all the way up to 12. It falls a little. And then in about 2018, it gets kind of low. Not where it was in 2009, but it gets kind of low. And then it is just a free ride up. Most of the ride up happens during the Eric Adams administration. And now it peaks to levels that it hasn't been seen in over 25 years. So this is the Bronx. The Bronx is burning. But yet we'll sit here and we'll watch these people talk about going in green rooms and eating bacon, egg, and cheeses and drinking coffee and getting fat, because ultimately, because they have such skinny legs and small ankles and weak legs, they'll ultimately wind up with ankle injuries that will allow them to flout paying taxes and get fake injuries, which are called that were not sustained in the line of duty, that were sustained because of their poor health choices and their poor eating options. And you'll see people get these huge, very large pensions, right? But they'll do that. They'll get out on these fake injuries and they'll sit there and tell you how safe New York City is. But is New York City, does that look like it's safe? If the Bronx isn't safe, if Staten Island isn't safe, if Brooklyn isn't safe, if Queens isn't safe, if Manhattan isn't safe, is New York City safe?
Oh, John, that's just semantics, John. You have to go with the factual narrative. The factual narrative just turn to John Shell's tweets or Kaz Daughtry, and that's where you get the factual narrative. That data that you see, that's got to be a mistake. I mean, and yet it comes from the NYPD, but it's still a mistake. You know, just as we had yesterday on our podcast, apparently the NYPD makes a lot of mistakes when it comes to data because we have an inspector that is arguing and debating through third-party information, you know, contacting me and John, that he doesn't have 5 arrests. But according to the NYPD database, their own database, he has 5 arrests. But yet, supposedly he has 140 some odd arrests. So I'm not trying to make fun of him, but the point is, well, if this is the case, then we need to go back to the drawing board. And the NYPD has a bigger problem that they're not properly maintaining data. And yet this is supposed to be the era of transparency. We're supposed to be extremely accountable, responsible, liable. The public is supposed to have the most up-to-date, the most transparent information, the NYPD. But apparently they just don't. If you want the factual narrative, you got to get it from John Shell and Kaz Daughtry. Everything else in the police department is wrong. That data is wrong. The data that Sam Antar puts out is wrong. What's right is what John Shell and Kaz Daughtry put out. That's what they're saying. Again, another lie by these 2 clowns, these 2 idiots that have nothing better to do but go around and support their own egos. You know, Crow Eater, thank you so much. You're a good friend of the podcast. Says to Juju, you spend 2 hours a day listening to this small podcast that no one listens to. Just think about it. Juju is on job time at one police plaza. Well, I'm just curious. Do you watch this in your office at one police plaza, or do you watch this on the second floor, those big giant screens at the Joint Operations Center? I hope you watch on the second floor at the Joint Operations Center so that the rest of the police department could actually watch how you're spending job time sitting trolling this podcast. Anyway, let's get right into this. This is big news. Let's jump right into it, John. Let's talk about the aid for Governor Hochul. I think this is big stuff here.
Yeah. So Linda's son and her husband, she was a political aide to Governor Kathy Hochul as well as Governor Andrew Cuomo. She was arrested yesterday. So political insiders were shocked by the arrest Tuesday of son and her husband, Chris Hugh, on charges of violating and conspiring to violate the Foreign Agents Registration Act, visa fraud, alien smuggling, and money laundering conspiracy, to which they have pleaded not guilty. There is no one who worked in or around politics in the Asian community who knew Linda's son who isn't absolutely floored by this. One source familiar with Son told the Post. I've worked with Linda's son for many years and have only known her to be a diligent professional and conscientious. She is absolutely innocent until proven otherwise, State Assembly John Liu wrote in the statement after her arrest. According to the indictment unsealed in Brooklyn federal court, Son and her husband, Chris Hugh, were paid millions of dollars in kickbacks in exchange for acting as foreign agents for China. And the couple allegedly laundered their corrupt gains, including on a gaudy $4 million mansion in Manhattan. The Queens operative had a modest upbringing, so her sudden move to a fancy Long Island home raised eyebrows even before it was raided by the FBI in July. Linda doesn't come from money at all, once the source said. Several were all confused on how a government staffer and her husband, who owns a liquor store and some other nondescript businesses, were able to buy the nearly expansive home, which was purchased without a mortgage, according to property records. It seems crazy to me, one source said. Son came to the state capitol in 2009, a close ally and chief of staff to then Assemblywoman Grace Meng. They got to Albany and didn't have anyone except each other, source said of Son and Meng. As Meng's star rose among New York City Democrats, so did Son's. Several people told the Post they were always impressed with Son's work ethic and legislator through her posts in the administration of former Andrew Governor Cuomo and then Governor Kathy Hochul. One source said Meng, who is now a U.S. Congresswoman, recommended for Sun for her job in the Cuomo admin as a rep handling Asian American affairs in Queens. A rep for Meng said in a statement Tuesday, "We don't know anything about the charges other than what is being reported." After joining the administration, Sun continued working with Asian American affairs, but eventually came to wear many other hats as well, shifting to the Empire State Development Economic Office, where she handled trade missions with a portfolio focusing on Asian countries, including in China. So basically, what acting as a foreign agent is that she was taking money from a foreign government, and I didn't read the indictment, but what I think is that they're alleging is that she was attempting to help China gain a foothold with elected officials. And just for those of you that remember, Eric Adams, advisor, who works for his Asian affairs advisor, Sal Greco's cousin, Winnie Greco from China. Her home was actually her Queens home was raided by the FBI, and she had arranged several trips for Eric Adams to go to China. So a lot of smoke coming from China and foreign countries going into New York City and New York government.
You know, it's interesting, right? That I forgot his name, that totally supports her and says, you know, she's innocent. And we're talking about, they have a home that's worth $3.5 million. You know, and listen, I don't like to look at people's assets and to count their money, but you got to put two and two together based on her salary and the small businesses that they have, that they're able to own a $3.5 million home without a mortgage. Does open Pandora's box, and you have to ask a lot of questions. You know, but again, how does this circle into the police department? If we're going to put any reference to the police department, of course, your PBA president, Pat Hendry, signed the checks that endorsed Governor Kathy Hochul, the communist governor for New York City that has slandered the New York City Police Department, that's denied the bills that help the police department. And then we have people like this that are thriving on this administration. That's who they donated your union dues to this administration. That's what's key. And how does this come back to policing and politics? That's why politics is so important to pay attention to right now. If you're in law enforcement, more now than ever.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely what you're seeing is just low integrity all around, right? When it comes to campaign donations, when it comes to dealing with foreign entities, when it comes to anything. Now, I don't know if this girl's guilty or not, but now I know that there's been several accusations of communist China buying our politicians and the people who work around them and then paying for their trips around. So, you know, where there's smoke, there might not always be fire, but there's a lot of damn smoke. So I'm saying not only is there one fire, there's multiple fires happening throughout New York State. And we're seeing it, right? We're seeing the misuse of our tax funds when it comes to the illegal immigration. And I don't even want to call it a crisis. It's a politically created crisis. When we're seeing those who support open borders, when we're seeing those who are sitting there crying about their cities are going to be destroyed, like Eric Adams, but yet when it comes time that he can actually do something about it, he endorses Kamala Harris. So is he really a friend to New York City? Is he really a friend to the New York City Police Department? I don't think so. I think, honestly, it's time for change, or we're going to lose New York. Or John Shell's allegedly $28,000 tax-free pension isn't going to really be worth so much in the future, and he might not even be getting paid at all. He's going to have to be working at Newsmax, slaving away.
Well, I think we already lost New York. If you compare the New York right now in comparison to the New York that thrived under Rudy Giuliani and actually further thrived in the pathway with Mayor Mike Bloomberg, I mean, it's a huge dichotomy. It's a huge comparison. And again, I think that we lost New York City. We circled back. I know you hate when I use that terminology, but we circled back and we went right back to the late 70s and the early 80s of the New York City Police Department. Again, I was shocked. I mentioned this yesterday in the podcast. I was shocked When I read an article about a chain snatch in New York City, I said, wow, how far back have we gotten? So primitive, even in the technological era. Most of the narcotics trade that we don't see cheese lines anymore. And you would think we don't see these type of strong armed robberies of chain snatches. But we see it because Mayor Eric Adams, who's supposed to be a friend to the police and the public, which he is not, he brought the third world problems here. How? You might say, well, how did he bring these third world problems? He's not responsible for open borders. Okay, I'll give you that. Maybe he's not responsible for open borders, but he votes them and he supports them because he supports President Biden. What did he tell you? He told you he was the Brooklyn Biden. And now he supports Kamala Harris. And he further supports a sanctuary city, which is a blanket of protection for these illegal aliens. At no point has he called an emergency executive order, a state of emergency for New York City, and violate the stupid charter of sanctuary city for New York City that protects these illegal aliens. We need to document the illegal aliens. We need to communicate with our partners from ICE and have them deported because they are not vetted. And especially with bail reform, it's impossible to actually track them while they're out committing crimes and they get arrested for one. They're out with no bail and they're committing more crimes and they're further being facilitated and we're not deporting them. So we're just going through this round table in this constant cycle. And that's where we're at. And this city is suffering. It's bleeding. It's hemorrhaging. And I think the city is gone. It's a new form of what New York City now is. And I think people are just of acceptance of this point. They want New York City to be the New York City they once knew in the late 90s and the early 2000s. But this is not the mirror image of New York City that we know. And under a failed administration, it's impossible to thrive.
100%. Ron says the database has Shell listed as one infraction arrest. Ron, they switched that up. He had 120-something arrests on there. They've been manipulating those numbers for themselves, or they just pull it down. They do anything to change their factual narrative every day. I actually have pictures of it. So, I mean, and then when I ran the numbers for Wachter, Eric ran it and it was gone. So I had gotten 5 arrests and then it was pulled down from the system. That number is so heavily manipulated. They're all phonies. I'm surprised. I won't be shocked if they all just give themselves 8,000 arrests going forward, even though people that work with them will say something different, that they never did a damn thing, or they brag about murdering people and getting away with it like they're John Gotti. Real good guys.
You know what's funny, John? Before you go, you know what's funny? I guarantee that in the system, it's accurate of how people identify. If you identify as a two-spirit, that's going to be up to date and going to be accurate. Not your arrest record or your civilian complaints, but how you identify, that will be up to date. And your pronouns.
100%. So this is, before we get off Linda's son, this is her while she's working for Governor Kathy Hochul. You see it on her shirt right there, State of New York, Governor Kathy Hochul. This is what she's pushing while she's being paid by the Communist Chinese Party. Coincidence? I don't know. Let's see.
I think, when people say diversity and inclusion, I think everybody agrees, or most people generally agree, that it's a good thing, right? But I think right now we also need to bring in the word equity, right? Diversity is when you say that there's, many different types of people with different backgrounds and they're all, invited to the table. Inclusion is when, we include all of their ideas. But equity is when we make sure that all of the people who are at the table have equal access to making sure that their ideas and their thoughts are heard. And unfortunately, I think some of the statistics that you quoted is that we don't have that much leadership or representation. I think, when people say diversity and inclusion, I think everybody agrees, or most people generally agree, that it's a good thing, right? But I think right now we also need to bring in the word equity, right? Diversity is when you say that there's, many different types of people with different backgrounds and they're all, invited to the table. Inclusion is when, we include all of their ideas. But equity is when we make sure that all of the people who are at the table have equal access to making sure that their ideas and their thoughts are heard. And unfortunately, I think some of the statistics that you quoted is that we don't have that much leadership or representation. I think, when people say diversity and inclusion, I think everybody agrees, or most people generally agree that it's a good thing, right? But I think right now we also need.
What do you think about that, Eric?
I love that the Democratic Party propagandas this whole DEI movement. Most people agree that the DEI is great. Really? Most people believe DEI is great. I would definitely argue that, because the people I meet, and I travel throughout the entire country, are not in favor of DEI. They think it's absolutely ridiculous. They think it's actually emasculated this entire country, which it did. The problem is just, again, voter apathy, low votes. And you know what? Unfortunately, I think the Republicans are such cucks and they're so quiet about it. They don't put any opposition to the DEI movement. It's absolutely ridiculous that she says that people are in favor of DEI. Dan Romania has got a great comment here. I agree. The department with their smear campaigns and promoting themselves comes from the playbook of Joseph Goebbels, Nazi propaganda minister, and the Soviets. That's exactly right. It's for all the chiefs out there that you stand idle and you don't say a word. Could you have been a Nazi? Ask yourself. And I think the answer is yes.
100%. Dude, she talks about equity, right? Bringing everybody's voice to the table. Equity is the forced equality, which is communism. So whenever I hear the word equitable or equity, I cringe. I absolutely cringe, because it's completely has nothing to do with making things fair. It has everything to do with bringing some down, lifting others up. It's called communism. It's forced equality. Equal opportunity was the goal in American society, right? Regardless of where you are, you could reach your heights, right? And what do they talk about? Bringing the voice to the table. But our voices aren't being brought to the table, right? There has to be a mute button, right? If you support Donald Trump, your voice doesn't matter. We don't want to hear that. If you push back against the political narrative of anything, of what we tell you is good, what we tell you is healthy, what we tell you you must do, if what we tell you how much money you have to give us, if you push back at any of that, we're not looking for diversity, we're not looking for your inclusion, and we're not looking to make it equitable for you. So again, it's a complete control of the narrative. That video tells a lot to me. I think there's a big demoralization going around in most Democratic cities, most Democratic-run cities. Doesn't mean that the Republicans are good. I think that by far they're utter cowards as well. And I think the entire political structure of this country needs to be closely examined by the people who vote for them in power and the people that they serve. And we need to really start to take back our political structure. And we need regular people in there, serve short amount of times, 4 years, 2 years, and then go about their life, return to your business and live your life. But we need to get this country back on track. We need to have the ability to voice our opinions about complete disastrous and evil and murderous ideologies as the one that she was just pushing, which is DEI, or as I refer to it as DIE, because it kills everything it touches. And what we see is communism has failed everywhere in the world, and I don't think it's a good idea if we try it here. So,
well, I think the key to that also, just the whole diversity movement itself is not part of equity. This idea that we have to force something to be diverse just completely moves away from equity. How can anything be fair when we're actually forcing this diversity? We're forcing something to have a diversity appearance when it's not completely organic. Just we're not getting the people that are suitable for a position because this whole diversity push. And yet, but we're going to make sure everybody's on an equal playing field. And that was the beauty about America. That was the American dream, right? And what you said is to your heights, right? It's the opportunity to get to the highest of your ability. And everyone's abilities are different, and everyone has a different attributes to them. You know, some people were meant to work with their hands. Some people meant to work with their minds, and some people were meant to work with their hearts. But this ideology that we're all going to be on the same level playing field is just a completely Marxist communist ideology. You know, what's going to happen? We're all going to have the same salary. That's what was going on in these other countries, right? Everyone that's a plumber, this is what you make. Everyone that's an electrician, this is what you make. So how are you going to shop around for the best plumber, the best electrician? So it goes to this whole DEI movement. How are you going to have the best cops or best law enforcement or best any workers in any agency when we have this DEI movement? It's on the same level playing field. Why would I try to aspirate and do better when everyone else is on the same level playing field just for showing up?
Yeah, so before we get out of here, let's give you a little preview of what this fall semester is going to be like in college. Hope you know, all you that are saving up for your kid's college future or paid hundreds of thousands of dollars or are expecting to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars. This is what your kids will be experiencing this year on colleges in New York City. This is coming out from Baruch College. I wonder if John Shell and Kaz Daughtry have permission from the colleges to go on campus if emergencies happen or if people's lives are in danger. Something that also is a first in New York City, where we just removed the police's requirement to respond to 911 calls. So let's see. This is Baruch, start of the fall semester.
USA! 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 USA!
Welcome to New York City. This is just the beginning. Well, it's nice to see that people are actually kind of protesting. But can the police department actually put their handle on it? And you know what the sad part about this is going further. Going further with this, I envision in the manner that the police department is operating under this leadership. If I had to guess, if this protest gets out of control, which group do you think would be the first to be arrested? I would put my money on it. Those chanting USA, they're the ones that are going to be the first to be arrested. What do you think, John?
I'm just what do you always say? The best prediction of the future is a reflection of the past. I mean, who of course it is. That's just what it is. That's what we've seen time and time again.
Yep, under the behest of this leadership, that's exactly what you can anticipate. You can anticipate that the response by the police department would be, as they like to say, right, a light touch to those Palestinian protesters, but there would be a heavy hand to those saying America. And that's how it just proves right there that this police department is no longer apolitical. It's pandering to this whole democratic movement, New World Order. Anything that makes sense doesn't make sense. Common sense is completely gone. The police department is no longer apolitical. They're operating with a political agenda. It's all virtual signaling. You said it earlier. It's absolutely right. Kaz Daughtry dancing at the West Indian Parade is virtue signaling. John Shell taking a picture with Al Sharpton and Mayor Eric Adams, not long after 5 people were shot smiling, is more virtual signaling. It's gaslighting. This is what's going on in New York City. You see it. It's in your face. Our listeners, our friends on the podcast, we're all aware of it. We have to get everyone else aware of it. And that's why they want this podcast. Excuse me. That's why they want this podcast shut down. It's because this is the real narrative. It's what our friends, our listeners say and what we're saying right here. New York City Council. Here's our favorite friend from the Golden Girls. He looks absolutely beautiful. Let's do it.
Absolutely. Listen, before we get into this, we're going to talk about Eric Adams and his buddies being indemnified for sexual harassment and sexual assault, something that does not fall under the scope of duties as a New York City police officer. So if you're accused of this by a coworker or someone you didn't effect an arrest or interact with as part of a 911 call, the city is not allowed to indemnify you, and it's actually illegal. It violates the city charter. And which is why you have not seen cops indemnified for rape, or the city has not represented them for things of that nature, or sexual assault against a coworker or stuff like that, or around that. They make you get your own representation, right? But that's not what's happening in New York City. But before we get into that, Remember, everything we talk about on this show is a politically created crisis. Juju is silent now because he is actually live on television as we speak, and just in a rare glimpse, you could see why he just went silent. He'll be back on in a few minutes as he's driving back. But this is all a politically created crisis. So make sure you tell your friends and family about Tom Sullivan. Tom Sullivan is the Republican, Conservative, and Common Sense Party candidate for New York State Assembly District 23. Tom is a financial professional who served simultaneously in the United States Army Reserve for 30 years and has now retired. His district covers Ozone Park, Lindenwold, Howard Beach, Broad Channel, and the Rockaway Peninsula.
Come November, I would empower our law enforcement agencies to go out there and do their job and not put them or their families or their pensions at risk for doing their jobs. We need drastic change in Albany so that we have a say in this matter, and they realize people of New York State will hold them accountable.
The Sullivan family has a legacy of service. Tom served for 30 years protecting and defending the rights of others. Come this November, he has earned your support. This advertisement's paid for by the Friends of Tom Sullivan.
That's a good man right there, Tom Sullivan. I like him. Gentleman, older guy, very respectful, patriotic, served his country, served his community. Vote Tom Sullivan, man. Good guy. Let's get right into it.
All right, here he is. Golden Girls.
Could you briefly explain your understanding of the process by which the law department determines whether or not to represent an employee accused of sexual harassment?
I have not been involved with the law department. I remember what the procedures were 25 plus years ago. I know there are protocols for doing that. I would want to review it when I get there. I would want to evaluate the protocols to see whether I think they're appropriate or not, and I would commit to do that. But I'm not familiar with the protocols.
Well, I'll tell you the upshot. The law department will determine if the employee was acting within the scope of his or her public employment and in the discharge of his or her duties, and was not in violation of any rule or regulation of his agency at the time of the alleged act or omission occurred. So, yes or no, is it correct that if the Corporation Counsel determines that an employee was acting outside the scope of their employment, the employee is not entitled to representation, as far as you understand?
I think as a general proposition, while each case depends upon its facts, I think that is correct.
Great.
The employee acted outside the scope of their employment, that would be different.
And yes or no, is it correct that the Corporation Counsel determines that an employee acting in violation of any rule or regulation at the time of the alleged incident, that employee is not entitled to representation?
Again, it depends upon the facts of each case, and we don't, in the context of potential civil representation or in the context of a criminal case, we don't prejudge the individual based on the allegations in a criminal or a civil complaint.
Of course, you don't prejudge. But if you believe
the fact of the matter is, these issues depend upon a deep dive factually, and I would want to review the law department's protocols to determine whether I thought they were appropriate, and I will reform them accordingly. But I don't believe that the law department represents people who act outside the scope of their.
Well, they're certainly not supposed to. Do you believe that if reasonably verified, repeated sexual harassment is in violation of a rule or regulation of the city?
Well, obviously, sexual harassment is not something that's condoned by the city.
If appointed, would you agree to re-examine the current representation decisions to confirm that they meet the appropriate standard?
Yes.
When you were first approached by the Adams administration to ask if you were interested when were you first approached by the Adams administration to ask if you were interested in being considered for Corp Counsel?
Earlier this year.
Can you be more specific?
It was after the first of the year, probably more like February.
February.
But that's based on recollection. It's now been so long since word leaked that I was potentially being considered.
Well, you
It
made it
feels
to this
like a
stage in the
lifetime,
process.
ladies
It
and
is,
gentlemen.
I know it does. Have you had any conversations with the mayor or members of his team in the past 7, 8 months about decisions regarding representation and provision of outside counsel?
None.
Uh, Would you
I've
consult?
never had a discussion with the mayor about any particular case or any particular representation at all.
Yeah, he's lying. Anyway, what do you think about that, Eric? Should New York City taxpayers foot the bill for, he hones in on Timothy Pearson on here, but he doesn't bring up the mayor. Do you think that we should be footing the bill for this? Does a coworker accusing you of sexual assault fall in to the scope of your duties?
I'll break it down very simple. We hear about scope of your employment acting with the scope of your duties. So work in the South Bronx, of course, doing stop, question, frisk, doing plainclothes work. I had a substantiated complaint from the Civilian Complaint Review Board for stopping someone. No firearm was recovered. It was a great stop. All the behavioral indicators were there for an illegal firearm. Of course, the Civilian Complaint Review Board substantiated. And guess who was sued and not indemnified? This guy right here. I was sued, and because it was substantiated by the Civilian Complaint Review Board, I was not indemnified. So I believe you know my answer. The answer is this is absolutely ridiculous, but it just shows when you give power to weak men who abuse that power, how dangerous it is, and how everyone is actually affected by it, including the taxpayer. So if anybody thinks it doesn't affect them, it is what it is. Guess what? Here it is right here.
All right, let's finish with Sophia Petrillo from the Golden Girls. This is going to get good.
Would you consult with the mayor when making determinations of when to provide external counsel for senior government officials?
The law department makes those determinations according to a protocol. It's not a question of consulting with any one individual.
What role do you believe the Corporation Counsel has in defending the mayor and members of administration for activities that fall outside of the reasonable expectation of work on behalf of the public interest?
I think we've already talked about this. If you acted outside the scope of your authority, that's not something that I understand typically Corporation Counsel would be involved in.
Well, I have to say plainly, of course, I'm concerned about the case of Tim Pearson in particular. There have been allegations of repeated sexual misconduct and harassment by him, by many colleagues who've worked with him in city government. There was an inadequate investigation, according to statements from the City Hall press office. And yet, he is still in his job. He's still overseeing staff, including women. He's been provided with a white shoe attorney, outside counsel, at no expense to him. We, as taxpayers, are paying for it. This, of course, has been widely reported to be the major or one of the major issues that led to the discontinuation of public service for Judge Heinz Radix. So it is of grave concern to me how the mayor interfered in this case and insisted that outside counsel be provided to his friend, that an inadequate investigation occur, and that he's continued to serve in his job without any repercussions whatsoever. And I take you at your word that you said today, if confirmed, that you will review that case and that you will not consult with the mayor in determining whether outside counsel is appropriate. Did I get that right?
You do have that right, and I want to say I appreciate what you are saying. I'm not accepting the characterizations of certain issues or people. I have to steep myself in the issues and study them, but I just say this about the judge. I have enormous respect for the judge.
You and me both.
I appeared before her when she was a judge on the case to block the Bloomberg administration from
Whatever. Blah, 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 blah. Anyway, that's what we're paying for. This guy is full of crap. So a lot of freedom fighters in New York City, because the Republicans went on to bootlick for the maestro because they don't believe. I mean, he's basically saying that he doesn't believe anything, that he's not going to accept the characterizations of what of what Lincoln Wrestler is implying is that the corporation counsel was moved because she was weary about indemnifying Mayor Eric Adams and his buddies, which is exactly what happens. Now, Lincoln won't hone in on Eric Adams because he's afraid of him, but he's bringing on Timothy Pearson. So I got to say, I'm no fan of Lincoln Wrestler, but he nails it. This is what someone in city council should be doing. They should be the checks and balances for the people as it relates to the New York City mayor's office and all of the New York City agencies as they're concerned. And this is a clear misuse and something that's happened in New York City. And this is the number one reason why this appointment is happening. This is the number one reason why the old corporation counsel was asked to leave, because she didn't want to violate the law and indemnify them over things that fall out of the scope of their duty while they violated policy. This is the number one reason. So Lincoln is 100% on point here. And you could see how squirmy this man is in his chair when he's asked about it, because he's being brought in for this exact reason. And yet people in the Freedom Fam, because Vicky Palladino wanted to bootlick for Eric Adams and pretend that the appointment of Randy Mastro is going to be a good thing, a lot of people believe that, well, he'll drop all of the pending litigation as it relates to the mandate and put people like myself and Marlon Bethel back to work. I'm here to say right now, not only will he not drop any of those cases, he will double down, and you will be giving the mayor a pit bull who is going to work directly against you. So not only are you helping to ensure you'll never get back to work, you're helping the mayor to bring down more illegal edicts. And this man, in my opinion, is a snake and a weasel, and I'm determining that based upon his testimony. I will listen to all of it, and I was disgusted from what I heard.
Well, this Santa Claus looking character over here is just completely full of shit. And he knows it. Again, Eric Dim, most complained cop. I was not indemnified for doing police work. The only thing I did wrong that day was actually doing intrusive police work. If I would have just not stopped the person I thought was in possession of a legal firearm, I would have not been sued, and I would have not to put any money out of my pocket. This is absolutely ridiculous. And you know what? I know what he's saying. I think Lincoln Russell was 100% right here, but I don't give him any credit, because if you're going to call out Timothy Pearson, which you should be calling out Mayor Eric Adams also. And again, you need that fortitude to have these full checks and balances. Every allegation that Timothy Pearson has received are the same allegations that Mayor Eric Adams is getting. So why are we not mentioning Mayor Eric Adams, who's walking on the same parallel as Timothy Pearson? Every one of these cats is getting all these sexual allegations. You know what? I always support, I support both sides. Someone who's making the claim, they have a right to make their claim, but I also support the party that is the subject of a sexual allegation, because these things are extremely hard to prove or disprove. But the weight that this administration uses their power, just complete misuse, because not only have they had allegations against them, which are pretty tough to approve or disprove, they use their weight to have indemnification while others can't, just like myself. But then they also go on a full smear campaign for the people that make these allegations. So we have, look what this administration is doing. They're juggling around, moving people out of corp counsel to make sure that they're indemnified, smearing people that make the allegations. Anyone that speaks up against this administration, are we not seeing that they're completely tyrannical? And that's why, again, you see it right here. You see it right here with Lincoln Wrestler. Pretty ballsy for him to speak out about Timothy Pearson. But is it really ballsy? Because he didn't mention Mayor Eric Adams. So I'll give him some credit. I won't give him full credit.
Yeah, and this is the fall girl for Chris Christie. This is what she has to say about Randy Maestro for the Bridgegate scandal. So I'll just play a quick clip of this, and then we'll start to wrap this up and get out of here. But I just think, I hear all these people that I support, and I just really think you got to wake up. A lot of people are getting gaslit and not even realizing it. Just listen, I think I've been the biggest, most outspoken critic about New York City Council. I think every single one of them hates me, regardless if they're a wing communist socialist or they're a right wing pretend conservative. They all hate me, right? And I'm gonna say right now, I'm not in opposition of things just because it's against people that are in opposition of my political ideology. So what he's talking about right here, what Lincoln Ressler was talking about, he's dead on. He's dead on. I mean, and if we can't see that, we can't see past that, and we hold on to our own political ideologies just to be different or just to say, well, I don't support Lincoln Ressler, so I can't agree with that. It's dumb. It's dumb. So just because the leftists and city council are maniacs and they've done much to destroy the city, they're absolutely not wrong about the appointment of Randy Maestro. Let's hear what this woman, who was thankfully had a Supreme Court overturn her illegal prosecution where she was going to be sentenced to jail, but this man ruined her life, and so did Governor Chris Christie, a Republican, by the way.
And I am a victim of Randy Mastro's sexism attacks in New Jersey. Distinguished members of the Rules Committee, good evening. Thank you for hearing my testimony today regarding Randy Mastro's nomination. I am not a resident of your city, but I am your neighbor and I visit often. I am proud of my 20 years working hand in hand with New York City during my time in New Jersey state government. I'm also someone that lost that career in government, in large part due to the underhanded and unethical actions of Randy Mastro. As you heard today, Randy Mastro was hired by Governor Chris Christie to the tune of more than $9 million to manufacture what has become known as the Mastro Report that lied about me, slut-shamed me, scapegoated me, and I eventually took the fall for what is known as Bridgegate. In listening to Mr. Mastro's opening statement and hours of chatter of self-serving adjectives, I wanted to make sure I added one of my own to describe him: sexist. Councilmember Farias, thank you for raising the issue of the irresponsible work product of this witness in the Bridgegate matter. To correct his testimony, I was the Deputy Chief of Staff to the Governor of New Jersey, not the mayor. And yes, Mr. Mastro and his whitewashed report was chastised by a federal judge in New Jersey. And Mr. Mastro's response was that she had not been an investigator. She was just a civil attorney before sitting on the bench. I think that was downplaying Judge Wigginton's role prior to being nominated to the bench. And that's another Randy Mastro tactic, sexism at its best. Mr. Mastro stated that he conducted his Bridgegate investigation just like the FBI. You, Mr. Mastro, are not the FBI. And with the FBI, I got to see their 302s. You are accountable to the taxpayers of New Jersey to retain your notes and, as you say, perform standard or best practices. You did not. Your investigation led to the destruction of not only my career, but my reputation. And today you were given the opportunity to express regret, and he's not even in the room, for the depiction of my character and my reputation. You chose to be silent, and that silence is deafening to me, my 4 children, and to the city of New York. What a shame. Randy Mastro is a conniving and ruthless politician and political operative who happens to be an attorney. When would somebody hire Randy Mastro? Perhaps you hire him when you need to threaten or scare someone, or when you need to take someone down for your own political security, or when you need a scapegoat to get you out of trouble. He's really good at what he does. He'll do whatever he needs to and goes after anyone that stands in the way of his principle, at whatever cost. In my case, it was Governor Chris Christie. Someone needed to have him take the fall for him. Randy Mastro embodies something that both Democrats and Republicans need to rid from our system. He will try to embarrass us all, including the members of this committee and the city council, and that is guaranteed if any of you stand in his way.
That's who that's who people want in Eric Adams' corner.
Well, you know what? This Santa Claus looking character, Randy Maestro, I tell you what, he is for this administration. He's an outstanding pick. It's probably the best pick that Mayor Eric Adams has made part of his administration to defend his honor. He picked the right guy. Another bully, right? Another bully. John Shell, another bully. Picked this guy. I mean, you got this woman clearly. I mean, she looks legit to me. The way she's crying, that sounded real to me. They found the right guy. Isn't it amazing? They found the right guy. Right?
She was convicted in a court of law. Like, no one thought that she shut the bridge down. Everyone knew it was Chris Christie. And then a federal judge looked at the case and said, what the hell is this? And overturned the whole thing 7 days shy of her being sent to prison. You know? So it's 100% legit.
Absolutely.
Man, she was scapegoated, and everyone knows. I knew it back then. I was like, how is Chris Christie not getting in trouble for this?
And of course, Mayor Eric Adams found him right in New Jersey. Right, he's probably his neighbor, right? Because Mayor Eric Adams lives in New Jersey himself. So again, he found the right people. They find the right people in this administration. If anybody thinks that the other people that left Corp Council is for any other reasons, for his own benefit, yeah, then you're sadly mistaken. That's why we have to go back and question for all the people that were excited that Arva Rice was removed from the CCRB and she moved. Well, you have to ask yourself why, right? Because he could have asked her to step down a long time ago with her disdain and bias towards police. So if anybody thinks she stepped down because other reasons, I think it has to do with Chief Jeffrey Madry's case. That's what I think. That's my impression of that.
No, Arva Rice she just wasn't fulfilling the narrative. She just didn't. Arva Rice was asked to step down for the narrative. Corporation Counsel was asked to step down for they were asked to step down because of the sexual assault case against not only Timothy Pearson but New York City Mayor Eric Adams, and that was in part. I got to give Sal Greco a shout out because he actually asked. He's like, I want to see the letter. I want to see the reasoning on why you indemnified Eric Adams. Like, I want to see that. Like, why'd you guys decide to indemnify Eric Adams? And what happened is Corp Counsel responded and said there is no letter, which is insane because there has to be a reasoning on why you would indemnify someone. And then when that came out, she was asked to step down, obviously, right? When there was no reasoning. I think she was having second thoughts because it does violate the law. It's a complete misuse of taxpayer funds and it's official misconduct. So here's a better video before we end. This should be a little louder than the last one of Eric Adams downplaying a mass shooting on the parade route of the West Indian Day, Labor Day parade, and actually touting what great a job that he and his team did. Here it goes.
This was a well-executed plan. And so some people would say, okay, well, 5 people were shot. Let's be clear. One nut shot 5 people. One, and we were just in that area. And so when you look at that one person who we're going to find that shot 5 people, you remove him from the equation, you got hundreds of thousands of people that were out this weekend and really heard the call of a peaceful Juve and a peaceful West Indian Day parade. So really hats off to the teams. And our hearts go out to the family members. I know one person died. We go out, our hearts goes out to the family members because you come out to celebrate. You don't want to come out and have that violence that we've seen in the past. That parade has always attracted a small element of people that wanted to commit violence. But we showed that if we come together, we can prevent that. And hats off to all those who were involved.
Dude, this is like, John, this is like saying like the cop that comes to work that's completely useless. And we all know we've had that guy. Like, oh, if this guy came to work on time and actually got himself in shape, and if this guy actually did his job, he'd be a good cop. That's pretty much what we're saying. Like, you know what? It was great. If you just take away the 5 people getting shot, it was beautiful. Just don't even look at that. Just take that away. If nobody gets shot, it was only one person that fired a gun. I mean, how many bullets can you put in a gun, right, Mayor Eric Adams? I mean, this guy would sell you ice in the winter. What a complete moron. And again, I told you, he's stone cold, man. The fact that he can say that with a straight face is pretty impressive.
It's honestly, it's completely disgusting. Nighthawk said he shut down the Dominican Day Parade for one slashing from one person or one nut, as he says. Why couldn't he shut down this one for a nut shooting 5 people Where is the DEI there? Exactly. Where's the equity there? Why for that parade and not for this parade? I mean, it's absolutely disgusting. I mean, again, just to end it out, I said it earlier on the show. I'm just going to end it out and say it one more time. Like, he literally sits there, says how safe it was, how well executed the plan was. A random person comes in and starts randomly shooting on the parade route where there are hundreds of officers, gets away. We still don't know where he is. Guy gets away. He's like, "Oh, condolences to the family, though, but we did a great job. Shout out to the team, great." And they didn't come out there for the violence that we've seen in the past. So the mass shooting on a parade route in front of hundreds of officers where he was able to sneak away was violence. It was violence in the past. So he's absolutely out of his mind. Crazy 10-7 says, "Who's the angry black lady to his right?" That is Ingrid Lewis Martin. Some have said that she is also caught up in the corruption scandal and was paid a visit by the feds. I don't know that to be true or not. It's just rumored that that's the case. To his left, from where we're looking, is Sheena Wright. She's the more attractive woman on actually over his right shoulder, but to our left as we're looking at it. I believe, and I could be wrong about this, but I believe that she's married to one of the Banks brothers. Could be wrong about it.
That's why I say it. If I ever open up a used car dealership, I want Mayor Eric Adams to be my top salesman. This guy could sell you anything. The fact that, it was only one nut, shot 5 people, and we will find him. I mean, there's a lot of information in this little speech that people hang on to. So we have an unapprehended perpetrator that is a complete nut that fired into a crowd and didn't hit his intended target, because I highly doubt his target was a 60-some-odd-year-old person. And we can actually overlook, we only lost one body. I mean, how insulting is to the family? It's only one person dead, but it was a great time. So while someone was on a gurney, lost their life, we're sitting here having a festive, great time. That's what he's saying. That's how insulting it is. I'm telling you, he's stone cold. The fact that he can say this with a straight face is absolutely insulting. And I'm sorry to the family that lost a member. It's absolutely terrible. This is ridiculous. And that's why I said, what was the plan? Clearly, the plan said, I'm sure, 1 shooter and 5 people shot. That's the plan. Whatever their under or over was, I don't know what their number was, but I can now assume it was 2 shooters. If there's 2 shooters, the plan failed. And if it was more than 5. But 5 people shot, 1 death, and 1 shooter, great success. Apparently, that was the plan of the New York City Police Department at the behest of Mayor Eric Adams. And this is your New York right now. Listeners, friends of the podcast, thank you so much for being with us. I know sometimes we go over 2 hours, and I appreciate you sitting tight. There's just so much news, so much information. It's endless when it comes to New York City, especially on this administration. And we're going to keep it going. It's quite ironic. Again, I like to point out the fact that Juju has been very quiet, and we saw the least amount of trolling from Juju. Ironic at the same time while John Shell is doing a media tour with Rosanna Scotto. Let's put 2 and 2 together. But sure enough, thank you. This is New York's Finest Unfiltered podcast. John and Eric giving you everyday news. We're going to be live tomorrow again, 8:05 Eastern time for our friends on the West Coast, 5:05. Grab get live before you get your coffee. We appreciate it. If there's anything you want to mention to the podcast, something you want discussed, just hit us up, www.thefinestunfiltered.com. Like and subscribe. We appreciate it. John, any closing thoughts?
Yeah, just, he downplayed, he completely downplayed a mass shooting. So according to Eric Adams standards, the assassination attempt of Donald Trump, because it was only 1 shooter, was successful. The Las Vegas shooting at the country concert was successful. Law enforcement, the elected officials did a great job at all of those events because it was only 1 shooter. AJ acknowledges that. He said he emphasized 1 as to stress it's better than more than 1. Complete gaslighting wordplay. You're 100% right. And Crazy 10-7 says this, and I think it needs to be pointed out before we wrap up. There were 10 shooting incidents attributed to the parade. There was also people stabbed, and I don't know how many that was. And there was also people assaulted. There were cops that were injured, and there were cops that were assaulted as well. And there was a lot of other violence, physical violence out there too as well. He says, except no one could hear Citywide 4 or what's known as the Shell Channel. right? So that's what's going on. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. We'll be back at you tomorrow live at 8:05 for the actual factual narrative that we don't control. It's not ours. It's not Eric's. It's not John's. It doesn't belong to this podcast. The truth is the truth. Doesn't belong to the NYPD, and we don't block comments either. So join us tomorrow. We're always happy to see everybody, and that's it. And then we'll see more from the Gotham brothers, I'm sure, tonight. Watch out for John Shell's Twitter around 10 o'clock. It gets angry around then.
Yep, John Shell, drink up, brother.
That's it.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden, they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime, but nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?
Law enforcement professionals dedicate their lives to serving and protecting our community, but who's protecting their financial futures? That's where Laidlaw Blue comes in. Our wealth management platform is specifically designed for the law enforcement community. Laidlaw Blue is a division within Laidlaw Wealth Management, run by retired New York City detective John McDermott. His status as a retired detective uniquely positions him to establish a deep connection between Laidlaw Blue and the law enforcement community. Our platform is easy to use and provides a range of financial services, including investment management, retirement planning, and insurance solutions. With Laidlaw Blue, you can secure your financial future and provide for your loved ones. Our team of experienced financial advisors understands the unique challenges and opportunities that law enforcement professionals face. We're here to help you navigate the complexities of financial planning and achieve your goals. Laidlaw Blue. Secure your financial future today. Book a meeting using the QR code displayed or call us directly on 888-901 Blue. That's 888-901 Blue.